Good morning, DIY mechanics. I'm just wrapping up putting in some new fuel lines for my 1989 7.3 IDI Econoline. Did the FIP and some new injectors, but I was still battling some leaks with the hard lines. Everything was coming up for the truck models, the F series, but nothing really available for these old vans. So I decided to pull the trigger and buy some that were listed for the truck and see if I could make it work. Happy to say it's working out. So still got a few things to wrap up, but here's a few lessons. Okay, so here's one of the old hard lines. Here's how they work. There's no O-ring or washers or anything. There's simply a flared connection like this that goes into the receiving hole, and they just twist on. So something that causes a lot of leaks in these that I didn't know initially was over tightening. When you connect these, you got to make sure to do them nice and snug, but do not over tighten. There's, you can see on this one, see that groove there? I think that's from a little bit of over tightening. It'll push that flare into the receiving port a little bit and groove it out, and then it doesn't seat properly, and then it starts to leak. Okay, so here's the new lines. Like I said, these were for the F series. These were actually a pretty cheap version that I found on there's some models on Amazon and on eBay that said they would only work for the truck, not the van. If you're noticing a fuel leak and you can't really track it down, it can be actually really difficult because it doesn't actually typically drip right from the pump or the lines to the ground. What will happen is it will fill up this this cavity underneath. That is a pretty deep pool of diesel if you can't see it. I'll bring you to the back, not sure if you can see, but there's the pump. And you can probably see some diesel pooled up under there. To get to the injection pump, it was way easier to take all this off. I'm gonna try and turn. All that is 2 bolts, and you just can take them off one by one and work your way down so you're not reaching way down. It's a pain if only the bottom ones are leaking, like way down there. You got to remove these to get to it, but it's what you got to do. Just as you take them off one by one, take pictures, make a list. I did a little diagram, just labeled them 1 through 8, and made sure to list each connection from the injector to the pump, and just took them off easiest to hardest, basically the top easiest access one to the bottom. And then when I put them on, I just went in the reverse, started from the hard ones at the bottom, which are a pain, and worked my way back to the top easiest ones. Let's walk through where the leaks can come from. You see leaking seeping from this cavity, from this gap in here, then you know it's the metal connection, it's that flare. Maybe you over tighten, maybe it's rusting, maybe it got dented, but you got to take this off. That's what I showed you before. Super easy, just undo it and check that connection. This is the cap. It can, if this is leaking from up in this area or down there, it's very likely you've got a problem with an O-ring or something underneath this cap. It could be leaking right here. I've had that happen between the fuel line, these return lines, and the cap. These have little clamps on them. Adjust as needed. Sometimes it's that easy. Okay, and as one of the final steps here, I've got the dampeners on. They're not exactly in the same places they were where they came from the factory, but I just kind of found spots where they fit and made them work. So, and keep in mind, you can always keep the old dampeners as well off your old lines. They're a little bit different size on some of them, and so if there's a weird point like here, I'm just going to be watching these points as I do a test drive, see if there's any rattling or weird connection. You don't want any over rattling to make these lines to snap or anything weird. So yeah, you can always hang on to the old dampeners from the old lines if they might end up fitting better. Okay, with first look at the hardline connections, we're looking good, but I did notice a little leak in one of the soft line connections on the injector to the cap, similar to this connection, but this next one back over here. So let me give you a closer look. All right, and here's a new one just to show you what they look like a little bit more. They've got these little nipples on the end of them, and that's what this soft line popped off. All you do is take a pliers and loosen up this connection, pull the line, and then you pop it back on. So okay, cut to length, got some fresh clips on since these ones are a little mangled. We're gonna pop it back in right over there, hopefully good. Okay, fresh line on. You can see the new fabric. That's still an old line, so probably end up replacing that one as well. But yeah, went on pretty easy. So air filter housing back on, about to take it for a test drive, but one thing I did off camera that I just wanted to share real quick is bleeding the air out of the lines. Maybe some of you disagree. I've read a couple things that you don't really need to do this. You just rev it hard and it gets the air out, but I like to be safe. So all you do to get the air out of the lines is you take one of these connections and you start the engine with this a little bit loose. It'll start leaking out some diesel. You'll see some air bubbles coming out with the diesel. Just let it run for a few seconds or until you see the air bubbles stopping. And then with the engine still running and the fuel still coming out, you tighten it back up and then you're good to go. You've got all the air out of the lines. All right, folks, with that last soft line replacement, we are looking leak-free on the last startup, which is pretty awesome. It's been a minute since this system was 100% leak-free in the fuel system. It's no secret these 7.3 IDIs can be finicky with the fuel return lines and all this, but hopefully this helped you out a little bit. Learned from some of my mistakes and things that worked.